How's your energy, El Paso? Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Charlie Minn, independent filmmaker. You could look at a lot of my past work on Amazon Prime. I've made 25 movies, a lot of them in this area, and I'm happy to represent the great city of El Paso. We're going to mix it up a little bit differently today. A few months ago, I half-kiddingly said I should be interviewing you. You as in Leon Blevins, the one and only Leon Blevins. And guess what? We're not kidding now. This is reality. This is serious, Leon.
This is reality television.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't you be in this chair and I should be in that chair?
Look, I'm going to retire.
Yes.
This is the last show I'm going to do for El Paso Community
We don't want you to
Television.
retire, Leon.
Yeah, I need to retire and take care of household issues and health issues and things like that. But you know, I taught for 53 years.
Incredible.
High school, college, and so on. And then I taught at community college for 44 years. So I've just turned in a letter of resignation after my contract is up doing these shows this spring semester of 2018, is that I will be retiring from the show. So maybe I've got a ready-made host here today.
We'll see. We'll see how today goes. Leon, we miss you at El Paso Community College. I walk the halls at Valle Verde. As you know, I'm there quite frequently doing some presentations, and your presence is definitely missed at that school. And people know that I used to talk at your classes. They know, I think I've been a guest on your show maybe 88 times now. I lost track.
Well, I've had you on the show almost 10 times in 11 years.
Okay, so that's about one a year.
That's about one a year.
And people always ask me, tell me what Leon Blevins is all about. And I tell them, Leon Blevins is a character. And I literally mean it, because I mean, I remember, I'll never forget this, when I spoke at your class back in 2011 for the first time, you came in dressed as Chico.
Right.
And you were dancing, and I was looking at the students' faces, and they were, I'm telling you, they were entertained, but yet the most important part is they were informed because of your tremendous teaching skills.
Okay, that's what it was about. In fact, this particular interview about talking to me about my books, my writings, began because one of the former employees of here at El Paso Community College Television, Mark Negrete, said to me one time, somebody needs to interview you about the books that you've written. And that particular day that I was by here, I was dressed as a lieutenant colonel in the KGB, and there's a picture of Mark, and he gave me a little emblem that he had, hammer and sickle, and so I have it in my collection now. So Mark was the first one that said to me I should be interviewed about my books. And you're the second one that said that.
Yeah, and I do want to get to those books, but first of all, when I said that Leon is a character, he literally is a character. You've been Chico, you've been Superman, but you're most known to be Uncle Sam.
Right.
Tell El Paso how Uncle Sam was born.
Well, Uncle Sam was born, of course, I knew the real story of Uncle Sam in Troy, New York, and how that story of Uncle Sam came about. And then the famous poster in World War II, okay? And so I would describe these things. I started going to class with a patriotic shirt, or a white shirt with a very patriotic tie, and then a cardboard Uncle Sam hat. And I would get into patriotism, the idea of patriotism. All of these costumes I did over 100 costumes from 1970 up until now. And I would always tie that costume into the subject I was teaching, so it made relevant sense of what I was doing, not just putting on a show or acting crazy, showing how it related, and patriotic flags, all that kind of thing. And so I did that for years.
So how many characters do you have total?
Like I said, just a little over 100.
Oh, wow.
Really over 100 from 1970 until now. Here we are in 2018.
And your favorite one?
My favorite one, of course, is Uncle Sam.
Okay.
Recently,
well, that's what you're known for.
Yeah, recently, President's Day program, I went dressed for a group of homeschoolers in assembly, and I went dressed as James Madison. And the question came up, who is your favorite president? And I said, well, James Madison, not Lincoln. Lincoln helped save the Union, but Madison laid out the framework of the U.S. Constitution that we live under today, the checks and balances and all this stuff. And then he wrote the Bill of Rights, basically, what turned out to be the first 10 amendments, freedom of speech, press, assembly, religion, and so on. And I said, he's my favorite president. And I still do James Madison in costume.
Uh-huh. So you retired from teaching about a year ago. How's retirement going for you?
I enjoy it. I enjoy being able to. I still wake up early. I wake up usually between 4 and 5 in the morning.
A lot of people go to bed then, Leon.
Yeah, which goes back to childhood days. I'm not a New Yorker like you used to be, okay?
Yeah, we're 24/7.
Yeah, I grew up in a farm community area, and they got up early to go milk the cows and things like that. So we'd get up early in the morning and take care of chores and all those kind of things and turn on the radio. My first smell was chili powder because my grandmother was a good cook, and she'd make burritos and tacos and hamburgers, and she and I would go down and sell them on the street at the courthouse square in Brownfield, Texas, where I was born in 1937. So I have a lot of great memories, and I ended up teaching.
So you were born in Texas, and where did you go to high school and college and all that?
Well, I ended up going to Levelland High School, graduated there in 1956, and then I went to college at Wayland Baptist College in Plainview, Texas, got a bachelor's degree there. Then I went to Southwestern Seminary, a Baptist seminary in Fort Worth, for about a year and a half. And then I ended up in El Paso going to Texas Western from 1965 to 67, and got my master's degree there just as it became University of Texas at El Paso.
So you timed your Texas Western with the basketball championship?
Yes, and I've done some television programs on that. They're on YouTube now.
That's awesome.
And you can look at some of the interviews I did with some of those famous basketball players.
Willie Cager.
Willie Cager and David Latine and Jerry Armstrong and Neville Shedd. So those you can go to YouTube, YouTube, EPCC TV, Blevins, click, and you can scroll and see some of those shows.
Yeah, and as we're taping this program, I want to say today's the 52-year anniversary of Texas Western beating Kentucky. So
1966 was the year that they won that championship.
Right, but today I think is the 52-year anniversary, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, yeah, 52.
So you came to Texas Western, then you left the area, correct?
I went to Texas Tech, Lubbock, taught there for 3 years. Then West Texas State University, which is now West Texas A&M, in Canyon, Texas, near Amarillo. Then when they opened this school, 1971, I came the second year they had classes, 1972, and retired then just in 2016.
And what did you teach? Government all the time?
Government all the time. Well, there were a few times that I taught comparative politics, ethnic politics, that would be African Americans and Mexican Americans and so on. And there were a couple of years I taught some religion classes in the religion and philosophy area at community college. But overwhelming, it was here and at the Sergeant's Majors Academy for some years teaching government and politics, Texas government and American government.
What got you so interested in government?
I guess I was just civic-minded. I was a young child when World War II broke out, and my father went off in the Navy, and I ended up being sent small Navy uniforms and Army uniforms and Air Force uniforms and had pictures taken. My mother brought a Brownie camera and would take pictures of me and my two sisters, and so that made me think about history, and I enjoyed history. My major at Wayland was history. It was when I went to Texas Western and UTEP that I switched over and it went to government, American politics and Texas politics.
Do you miss teaching? Do you miss the students? Do you miss that every day coming in?
Yes, I miss some of that. I don't miss having to do tests and putting the grades down and all the computer stuff that goes with it and all of that. And in some ways, I'm glad that I retired. It was time. And also, students have very short attention span. It's hard to get them to read material. They just want to look at their phones and interact with text and things like that.
Yeah, the person in the back row, I know what you mean. Yeah, they're not listening to you.
So that makes it hard.
It's tough today.
So when I got into writing, it was at Texas Western. I taught a year in New Mexico, Deming, New Mexico, then 63 and 64. Then I went to California and taught near El Centro, California, a town called Holtville.
So you've been along the border all the time.
All over, most of my teaching career has been right here on the border,
Wow.
except for up in the Lubbock and Amarillo area. And so I ended up coming to El Paso. My wife had lived here before. Shanna had gone to Scaredy Elementary School and in Esleta High School. We met in college at Wayland Baptist College. So for some reason, the Lord kept bringing us back to El Paso. Lord, where do you want us to work? Well, El Paso, El Paso, El Paso. So we ended up here. A permanent contract. She was in speech therapy and then deaf education, and I ended up with government classes. Well, I was assigned as a teaching assistant my first year at Texas Western with Dr. Melvin Strauss, one of the best-known government teachers at Texas Western. They called it political science. He used a lot of big, fancy words. Dr. Strauss would teach on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I was the lecture discussion leader on Fridays. And students would come in, they'd have a list of words. What did he say on Monday and Wednesday? And so I tried to explain. There were no glossaries in the books we were using then. And it ended up, I ordered a political dictionary for them, and it wasn't a very good one, as it turned out. And so when we moved to Lubbock, I was having a dream about 3 in the morning one day in 1967, my first year teaching there. And I was dreaming about writing a political dictionary. I was restless, and Shanna said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Well, I'm writing a book. I've got a book in my head." She said, "You're crazy." I said, "I'm going to make money. I'm going to get $1 million. She said, "Well, get up and go to work on it." So I got up and went to work on it, and this is what came out. A topical dictionary of American government and politics, and a subtitle, The Young Voter's Manual. The 18-year-old vote had just come along, and I was stressing that students needed to get involved in politics. It is unique. This was 73.
That's your first book.
The first book.
Wow.
And it's unique because it's divided by topics. It's not just A through Z as a dictionary. It's by topics: the executive branch, the judicial branch, civil liberties. And at the back it shows cases that relate to that subject, Supreme Court cases. And then I have superscripts. It shows little numbers at the top of words. That means there's another word related to that in another chapter. So students, some professors still, in fact, I just did an interview recently with Richard Gilliland, one of my students for this show. He was in my class in 1974, and he said he still had this book on his shelf at his house. And one of my colleagues told me it was the best political dictionary he ever used. So that made me feel
How long
good.
did it take for you to write that book, Leon?
A year.
1 year, okay.
1 year. And I don't have time to tell you the techniques that I used, looking at a bunch of dictionaries and seeing how did they write this, and then I wrote my own. And then in 1987 was my first book, textbook, okay? And this one was published by Prentice Hall. Now, in the case of this one, published by Littlefield Adams, I went to New York City and worked a week with my editor on that before it came out in '73. This one, 1987, and it's called Texas Government in National Perspective. And one unique feature of this is I drew my own cartoons and line drawings and things. And here's a cartoon. I hired a student of mine to redraw the cartoons to Publishers Quality, named Todd Bennett. So he redid my cartoons. And then I built in study guide questions at the end of each chapter so that the students could practice for tests and things like that. So that was 87 is when
So there was a
began.
14-year gap between books.
Oh yeah, the stress at community college is not on writing books, it's on teaching.
Sure.
It's at the university level that they stress research and science and all kinds of things, and writing and publishing articles and books.
So these books are strictly meant to inform,
These,
educate.
these were educational type books,
Right.
not to impress anybody, not to get tenure or anything like that. It's just because I was trying to help students. And so then something happened. This was 1998, and this is a study guide that I have underscoring of things that are key concepts.
This is your third publication.
This was the third major publication, and this one was published by McGraw-Hill. These are major publishers.
McGraw-Hill, that's no joke, Leon.
Yeah. Now this one had a funny story. The publisher, I met the publisher's representative, actually a publisher, at Austin, Texas conference. And I described to him what I was working on, and he said, okay, I'm gonna see if we can work out a contract. So I believe it was this one. He sent a woman from Tucson over to sign a contract with me and sit down and discuss some of the things what we're gonna do. We were at a nice restaurant. She said, where do you wanna go eat? I'll pay the way. So we went to a nice restaurant. Sitting there with my legs crossed, I didn't know one of my legs had gone to sleep. It was this beautiful woman from Tucson. We signed a contract, get up to go, she's gonna pay out. I fall over on the floor because my leg had gone to sleep. She looks at me, oh my gosh, what happened, what happened?
What happened to you, Leon?
I said, oh my gosh, you just knocked me off my feet. Signed a contract having lunch with a beautiful woman, I just fell over on the floor.
Wow. So was the contract a good one?
It was a good contract.
Good, good.
It was a good contract. Then Pearson came along, And this one is flashcards. People that ask me, how do you know so much? How do you learn so much? They'll ask me about this on this program. How do you know so much? I'll say, no, I know so much because I spend a lot of time verbalizing things, talking to myself or talking to others. And then also I used flashcards to learn a lot of language. English, I took Greek, to use flashcards for Greek, history cards, and then I made up my own cards for almost every subject that I took in college. And on one side, I would write the information, and then on the back side, I would put the answer. Well, I was working on this project one day, and a woman from Dallas with Pearson Company comes in and was introduced by a friend of mine with Pearson here in El Paso. And she saw a student using flashcards outside my office. He was studying to take a test. I had a stack of flashcards on the desk, and she said, oh my gosh, what is this? And I told her. She opens her cell phone and calls her editor in New York City and said, I need to tell you about this professor. He doesn't have any degrees or diplomas or anything on his wall. He just has pictures of himself in costumes. Uncle Sam, Davy Crockett,
Right.
Superman, and so on. So he said, okay, send me a set of your flashcards and I'll see if I will publish them. He did. He signed a contract. And the first contract was a combination of American and Texas government flashcards. But when we came out with them in the next edition,
You didn't fall over on that one, did you?
didn't fall over for Jennifer.
Okay, good.
She was beautiful too, but I didn't fall over in the floor. So the next edition we came out, this is 2010, we did one volume separate, American government flashcard notes. See, this one was 2006. So 4 years later, we split it, American and Texas. And
This is book number 6.
And so this one, same thing, with unique features, things like that, outlines inside, outlines for the students to use, all student-oriented for learning. I have a reputation for being a hard teacher because I had a lot of material and I wanted them to learn a lot of material. Learn a lot of words so you can communicate with lots of people in many different environments. So that one was 2010. This one, I believe I gave you a copy.
Yes.
This is
I've
2016.
read a lot of stories in there.
Okay.
And the pictures are very, very memorable.
Okay. So what came about on this one is 1986, when I'd gone to Austin working and found the Prentice Hall editor, and he sent the woman over from Tucson. But I decided that I would put my life story on cassette tapes. So I did. On the way to Austin and back, I told 24 hours of stories. Came back 5 years later, I listened to them and I started writing them. And they turned into my autobiography. And the autobiography is broken into, this is the last 3 chapters of the autobiography. It shows the front cover done by Claire Rodriguez that worked with me here at the community college with this program. And she did the layout for me on that, some of the characters. And then so the first chapter is about American government characters. And at the end, I put some American government character pictures. Me and my wife, Uncle Sam and Aunt Sammy, a granddaughter, Taya, Rose, and me at the Vietnam Memorial Wall replica, and me a daughter with a daughter named Shalia. And so, and then the next chapter was Texas government characters with some more pictures and cartoons that go with the Texas government characters. And as you say, you've read some of the stories. These are Texas. Ann Richards made me an admiral in the Texas Navy, the last act of Ann Richards before she left office, when George Bush took over and Texas governor. Here I am with my wife, and there I am with 2 grandchildren posing for a photography class as Big Tex and the Texas admiral. So, and then the last chapter is general characters, miscellaneous characters that I did out in the community. Chopin, I do Chopin for the Chopin Music Festival. And so I have little stories in there about Chopin, or Barney, or Willie Y, or other characters, the Easter Bunny. Would you believe I even did the Easter Bunny?
Are all those pictures from El Paso?
Most of them were in El Paso, but some were in other places.
Yeah.
Such as I've traveled around the country and would stop and pose for pictures and things, sometimes with a tripod and put it on automatic.
Yeah, I notice you're a big picture guy, and I think that's important to capture the memories.
Yes, and that goes back to childhood when my mother had a Brownie camera, Kodak, and took a lot of pictures. My first costume characters were those when I was a child in the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. This is the most recent one, and I've mentioned this on another program. This is 2017. I had an article published in a magazine in the summer of 2015, and a man from Washington, D.C. called me, and he wanted to buy a copy of my master's thesis I mentioned in the article. I said, there only two exist. So I paid my son, Timothy, some money and got him to redo my master's thesis and put it on a Word document, Microsoft Word document, and footnoted and everything. And I self-published it, and it's called Slavery, Religion, and U.S. Congress. My specialization over the years was civil liberties and civil rights, dealing with freedom of religion, press, speech, and so on, and dealing with discrimination. You asked me on various occasions about the racist. My oldest costume character that I started doing, of course, was Uncle Sam with just a cardboard hat and patriotic shirt. And then my next full-scale character was the racist, dealing with prejudice and discrimination.
And you took some heat for that, didn't you?
Oh yes, there were times that people went to students, or some colleagues would go to the president of the college or dean and ask them to fire me because I was so open in discussion about race relationships in the classroom.
So the racist character, what made you evolve that, and what was the primary goal from that character?
Well, in Brownfield, Texas, I grew up in a segregated society. Where my father was a janitor, we had separate water fountains for colored and whites, separate restrooms for colored men, colored white men, colored women, and white women. No black lived in town. All the way through high school, I never had a black face in an annual, a school annual, okay? There were a few Hispanic faces in there, but not many. And so I became aware because I heard all the bad words about minorities, Oriental minorities, Hispanic minorities, black minorities, bad words, even from Christian people. My relatives that went to church every Sunday, they wanted the blacks to stay separate. No blacks lived in the town where I was born. They could come to town and work as domestic workers, but they could not live in town. They could not eat in the cafes or restaurants. They could not use the bathrooms in the service stations. I was born in 1937. So I saw all of that as a child, and it always bothered me. I thought every person should be treated the same, regardless of skin tone, skin color, hairstyle, or anything else, but they weren't.
Race, religion.
Race was always there. So when I went to Wayland Baptist College, they had desegregated in the 1950s under a college president who had gone to Africa, and he saw that some people over there didn't much think highly of America because they knew about American slavery. So he got Wayland Baptist College to be the first college, four-year college in Texas to desegregate voluntarily. And so foreigners began to be accepted there. UT El Paso, Texas Western was the first state college, but under legal pressure to desegregate and let a black woman, an African-American woman, into the classes here in El Paso. Then the rest of the state, under Supreme Court decisions, began to desegregate. So that's the reason I got interested in this. I wrote my thesis. It took me a year and a half, basically, to write this volume.
Which book are you the proudest of?
Probably this one, because it is
The
about...
one that came out just a year ago.
Yeah, that just came out self-published.
Right.
This one is the dearest to me. The dictionary just gives you words. This one tells you the history of what led up to the Civil War. People on both sides opening the Bible and showing why God was for slavery or against slavery. Then it led into civil disobedience. You can write a law, but we're not going to obey it because there's a higher law of God. And then it led to war. Brother against brother, family against family, killing each other. And by the way, I did one thing that was different with this updated version of my thesis. I added an index. I spent 3 months doing an index on this, so you can now look up what did Sam Houston say about slavery? What did Jefferson Davis say about slavery? What did so-and-so say about slavery? And so this one I'm most proud of.
So for the audience out there, how can they order these books? I know certainly you want to create awareness and...
Oh yeah, this is not an infomercial. This is a teaching moment, showing how I did some writing and styles and things I could put in here to help students learn. But if anyone, I still have some of these. I have a few of these left. I don't have any of these left except these in my files.
Are you planning on making some copies of that?
Well, I have it set up. I could make some more copies of this. But this one, I do have it set up. John Bauer, Printing and Graphics here in El Paso, has printed it and published it for me. And so it's in the machine, and we can run some more out. If someone wants to contact me, I can be contacted at email, Leon Blevins in El Paso @gmail.com.
Leon Blevins in El Paso
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com. Okay.
If they want to see some of the previous television shows that we've been done, including some of yours,
Right.
they can go to YouTube, EPCC TV, and they can see some of the previous shows that I've done on all kinds of subjects. Some on race relations are in here, some are on guns in here, and some on diversity, you name it, all kinds of health care, many different subjects over the 11 years I've been doing this show.
What do you miss most about EPCC?
I think I miss the most visiting with some of the people that I really like a lot. In fact, I made it through this building today and told my colleagues and friends, some of them are my former students from your space. Marco Lara, who's a co-producer on the show, is a former student of mine.
Excellent producer.
Okay, so I've been through the building today in Valle Verde this morning and thanking people for putting up with me for all of these years and letting them know I am retiring the TV show. I've told Marco Lara and Jenny Herone, the vice president, that I'm still willing to come back occasionally, like you, as a guest host, if there's a need and I'm available. But otherwise, I need to spend some of my time on getting ready to sell my house and move out and downsize and the whole thing, and deal with medical issues that my wife and I both have. So,
how's your health right now, Leon?
I'm fine except for my knees. My knees are very weak. And that's from all that dancing I did for so many years. And the aerobics I did aerobics for over 20 years, and I did dance performances all over El Paso for many years, and in parades and things. And so my orthopedic surgeon told me, Blevins, the only kind of dancing you should do is close-up, hold 'em tight kind of dancing. I said, that's the most romantic kind. And besides, she can hold me up.
How's your family doing, your children?
They're doing fine. They're doing okay. Our daughter lives in Louisville, Texas now, teaches in the public schools there, is doing very well. This is her 3rd year she's in. I have a son here in El Paso. He's a truck driver, long hauler. And I have another son that he's still here, and he lives in an apartment separate from us. And we're making it day by day. But I enjoyed doing this show. There's no doubt about it. I enjoyed writing books. In fact, when I proposed to my wife, I never will forget that I told her, if you marry me, 2 things. I said, if you marry me, it's in my autobiography, if you marry me, you will find life to be very interesting. She didn't know what she was getting into. And then I said, the other thing is I'm going to end up being a writer. And I said, writing sometimes is a lonely job. And she says, I don't care, at least you'll be in the house. If we get married, you'll still be in the house.
That's love.
And so she's put up with me all these years as an eccentric kind of teacher and a writer.
Yeah. Leon, I tell you, it's been an honor being on your show so many times, getting to know you, speaking at your classes. I wish you the best of luck in your retirement, you and your family. Don't be a stranger. And this was fun and exciting.
Well, I've had you on this TV show more than any other guest. Well, I can't think of a finer person to interview me about this.
Thank you very much, Leon.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'm very flattered. Thank you. And that's a wrap, as they would say in the movie business. It was certainly an honor to sit down with the great Leon Blevins. We have a lot of things to be grateful about for Leon Blevins. He's had, hundreds and hundreds of students over the years. Officially announced his retirement from this show. This show will never be the same again. There will never be another Leon Blevins again. So let's all feel lucky that we were able to meet the great Leon Blevins. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day, El Paso.
Chit chat. Oh, darn. Funny. Oh, no talking, just nodding.
He just needs nodding.
We ran out of words. Chit and chat.
Yeah, there we go.
Welcome to Perspectives El Paso.
That was pretty good. You didn't cough once.
I didn't cough too much.
Yeah, well, you were in good shape today.